Welcome to the eighth Fave podcast, a weekly podcast that I've been doing with friends and family. And we cover the background of my guests, and then we talk about the Fave topics before we finish up with a couple of stories. It's my pleasure to welcome to today's podcast, Cheryl Lilley Shea. Cheryl was a classmate of mine in Tenafly, and I'm glad to have her on. Cheryl, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Stan. Delighted to be here. Now, Dorothy Parker, I'm not, but I'll try to pull it together here.
I'm sure we'll have a good time talking today. I'm trying to recall when exactly it was that we met. We probably were in junior high school through 11th grade together in Tenafly. But my first real memory of you is from 11th grade, Mr. McDermott's history class. And maybe you can remember, you either sat in front of me or behind me. Do you remember which one it was?
I think I was in front of you.
All right, you were in front of me. Okay, so that's where I think we got to know each other the best during that class, which was a remarkably great history class, was it not?
That was a hoot. That was a hoot. Remember George Washington? He caught every disease that came down the pike.
If I remember correctly, Mr. McDermott's teaching style leaned heavily on showing film strips. I don't think there was an awful lot of.
Or he used to call them strip films.
And as also recall, the other claim to fame of Mr. McDermott was that he was the bowling coach. Is that correct?
He was the bowling coach? I thought he was one of the football guys.
Well, maybe he did both. Maybe other listeners will correct us as to whether Mr. McDermott.
Yeah, somebody call in.
But in any case, I'm trying to recall the last time we were together in person. And I'm wondering, in 2012, I came out to Boston to go to the Wellfleet Oyster Festival. Did you meet up with us? We had dinner at Legal Seafood in Burlington.
Burlington, yeah.
You were there, okay.
With Kathy and Steve. Was Steve there, I think?
Yeah. We had a bunch of people. I had some of my friends, and you had some fellow Tenafly people. So it was a little gathering for dinner. And I remember that. And I don't know that we've been together in person since then, have we?
Nope.
No, okay. So we have been meeting by Zoom pretty regularly. We don't meet every other week, but we try to. And a group of us from the class of 71 at Tenafly High School have been meeting for a long time. So we continue to enjoy that. But now I'm going to start out by asking you some questions about your background, starting out with when and where were you born?
I was born in 1953, May, in Christ Hospital in Jersey City, New Jersey.
And where have you lived?
All right, this will take up the whole podcast right here. Tenafly, New Jersey, South Hadley, Massachusetts, Oberlin, Ohio, Kenosha, Wisconsin, Washington, D.C., Danbury, Connecticut, Brookfield, Connecticut, Canyon Country, California, Los Angeles, Boston, Concord, Massachusetts.
Well, that's pretty good memory. Do you have a favorite out of all those locations?
Concord, Massachusetts.
Good. That's where you are now.
I wanted to be. Yeah.
It's a good thing you ended up living at your favorite place.
Yes, I'm lucky.
Who was in your family when you were growing up?
There was my dad, Theodore, Ted. There's my mom, Marguerite, Marge, or Maggie, if it was a really good day. There was my older brother, Wayne, and there was my youngest brother, a younger brother, Ross. We're all still close, except for my parents, who have gone on to their great reward.
Did you have any extended family around?
We had grandparents. We had my paternal grandparents lived right around the corner on the next street over. I used to go there every day to practice piano to prove that I was serious on my grandmother's baby grand. And my grandfather, he was a professor at Columbia, geologist. My other grandparents lived in Jersey City, which was about half an hour away. My grandfather was a minister. We would go there regularly to attend church at his church.
How about aunts and uncles and cousins? Were they around?
Not around, no. Not that much. We had some cousins, but we saw them rarely.
Mm-hmm.
Not a giant family.
What did your parents do?
My mom was, she started out working at Time Life. She aspired toward journalism, and then she shifted over to being a full-time mom when that came around. She was very civically active. So she was president of the PTG, the PTA in those days. She, gathered all the funds so that the marching band could go to the Rose Bowl parade, et cetera, et cetera. She was always real civically active. My dad was the assistant treasurer at Exxon, Esso, when it was Esso and then Exxon. Then he moved on to be an executive with TIAA CREF and the Financial Analyst Federation. They were both very active in church as well. My dad was kind of a pillar of his church toward the end of his life, especially.
And what church was that?
The Presbyterian Church in Tenafly, although we were also members of the Presbyterian Church in Englewood, and we were also members of my grandfather's Lutheran church down in Jersey City. This difference between the Lutherans and the Presbyterians was always a thing between my parents. So we used to sometimes go 1 week, we alternated. 1 year we would go to the Lutheran church and learn the catechism. And then the next year we would go to the Presbyterian church, which was a little more lax. We liked that better because we didn't have to memorize a lot. And then there was a every other week kind of a thing. We never did quite get it to a regular pattern.
How was it that you belonged to two different Presbyterian churches?
Because my dad's parents and my dad were members of the church in Englewood, the big church in Englewood first. And so we started out there and then we migrated over toward Tenafly. You know what? I don't exactly know why, but we did.
So when you were in elementary school and junior high and high school, what did you like to do? What were your interests and did they change over time?
They did change. I started out just being a neighborhood kid and, we played dolls, we would play kickball, we would have board games, play board games when we needed to, if it was a rainy, crappy day. I always sang in choirs. I always sang in the church choir. I always sang in the choir in every school. And then I graduated toward a little more, I was a runner. So I was part of the group that started the girls track team, actually the first girls track team at Tenafly High School. And it was quite enjoyable and hard. I always sang though, and I was in a group called The Meek, as in blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And we sang, we kind of patterned ourselves after Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And we sang at church, we sang at Libonati's Tavern a few times in Bergenfield. And that was kind of a cool thing. That really started my interest in singing. I played piano for many, many years. I played a terrible clarinet, but we had to because I was also a tigerette. And we were required. So I was the last, third chair, last seat in the clarinet section. I was so terrible. Yeah.
Now, what age did you first appear in a choir?
Oh, young at the big church in Englewood. So I was in the junior choir. I would say probably 8, 7. The best thing that came from that was our music director was a guy named Joe Coutre, and he was a consummate professional. He actually played professionally also in Manhattan at a couple of the big churches with the big famous organs. But he taught us all to read music, and he taught us about choir dynamics and vocal dynamics. And it was a great education every Thursday afternoon in that choir room. It was wonderful. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. Where did your interest in music begin?
I think probably with my mom. She loved to sing, and she never knew all the words to the songs. And they were kind of like the swing dancing songs, like Glenn Miller. And, she would sing and she would kind of sing like a little phrase and then walk away. And then another phrase. It was never a whole song strung together. So, but it was fun. So we used to sing together, like in the car, walking around. We would sing together. That's probably where it was. Also, we had an awful lot of 45s. You know, the little yellow ones that had
Yeah,
the loophole, but they were
yeah.
still a 45. We had tons of those around the house. And they were pretty wide ranging in genre, from kids songs, Disney songs to, you know, Artie Shaw, right?
So back then, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I had no idea. Honestly, I didn't stand. I was a really in the moment kid.
When do
I'm
you
probably
recall
the only
first?
person on the planet who had no aspirations. I just felt like, okay, life is good. It'll always be good.
Was there any particular age where you did think about what you wanted to be?
Yes. I think it was mostly, it was in, it was in high school, I think, when I had to start thinking about what type of college I wanted to go to. So I started to think, well, I think there's going to be some art involved, probably, and maybe some kind of teaching. I just don't know. I just didn't know. But I thought that that was probably where I was tending. If I had to make a choice, that's probably where it would have laid.
So where did you go to college and what did you study?
I went to Mount Holyoke College and I studied education and I studied studio art. My major was studio art. My minor was education, and I came out of it with a license, a teaching license, which was kind of a great thing. I also went to Oberlin College for my, I called my junior year abroad because it was so vastly different than Mount Holyoke. And I really kind of deepened my knowledge of silkscreen printing when I was at Oberlin. It was wonderful.
So where
Very
did your
fortunate.
interest in art begin?
It began when Allie Klein and I became friends in elementary school, actually. Her mom was a fabric artist. And so everything, everything that Carol Klein did just reeked of beauty and artfulness and craft. Her home, the way she spoke, the way she dressed, the work that she did. And Allie was a chip off the block. And so I think it came from there. Also, my mom, she curated some beautiful artifacts in our home. And she had a pretty decent eye herself.
What was
So
your
I guess I wanted to emulate that. That it just seemed like, oh yeah, of course.
did you get good feedback that art was something you were good at? Did that help you pursue it?
Maybe once or twice, not a lot. When I remember when we were in junior high, and Mrs. Lindman, there's this chalk pastel piece that I did of these people, these like strange figures dancing, and it was the artist that I became the artist of the week. And she would post an art piece of the week. And I remember when she posted that, I felt like, oh, maybe I have a little something. So I just kept dogging it down, actually.
How'd you choose Mount Holyoke as your college?
I love the campus. And I had friends who were already there and at Amherst. And so I did, I did all the hunting, the college hunting with my mom. And this just felt like it could be home to me. And
And did,
also I liked the art department. It wasn't world famous, but it was competent.
and did you find yourself liking it, Mount Holyoke, when you got there?
I did, although it felt a little on the sequestered side, and not necessarily with the balance of male viewpoint. I took a lot of classes in the Five College area. I took classes at Amherst and at Hampshire, and at UMass, none at Smith because we were rivals. So uh, it also propelled me toward taking a junior year somewhere else, just because it just felt a little insular. So
And what was it like going to Oberlin?
It was an interesting year. As I said, it really helped deepen my passion for silkscreen art and my interest in kind of branching out toward more adventurous art forms. Um, and also, my boyfriend at the time was there, so we were together for a whole year without having to go back and forth, you know, which was painful.
How did Oberlin compare to Mount Holyoke?
Well, there are boys there. It was much more of a counter culture type environment. Although Mount Holyoke had a lot of moments. Um, and also, it was in Ohio, completely different type of terrain um, than the Northeast, which is where I was used to.
Had you spent any time outside of the Northeast before going there?
Only traveling with my family. We used to pack everybody up in the Vista Cruiser, the grandparents, the dog, the three kids, the mom, the dad. I'm not lying. And we would put the boat out back on a trailer. And we went cross country a couple times that way. I'm not kidding. So we saw almost all of the states somehow or another by hook or by crook.
So after you graduated from Mount Holyoke, what was your first full-time job?
Okay, so my first full-time job after graduating was I worked at the League of Women Voters national office in Washington, D.C. I worked in their litigation department. We were trying to pass the ERA, and so I worked for the woman who was kind of spearheading that, Mary Brooks. She was wonderful. We sat in this little, we used to sit day after day in this little teeny office working tirelessly. We knew it wasn't going to fly. I think we felt like it wasn't going to fly, but we were still trying. We sat in this little teeny office, and she was pretty high powered, and she was a smoker. So we had this little teeny office, and it was classic. It was just a classic. It was a classic scenario. It was a great job. It was a great job. When Fritz Mondale kind of came on the scene as the nominee, uh, everybody, it was like people felt like they had died and gone to heaven because they loved him so much. I'll never forget that day. Anyway.
So tell us about some of the highlights of your career.
Oh, well, let's see. I know where you're going with this. So I was really looking for a teaching job. I wanted to be an art teacher, and I was I had the credential. And so I finally did land a job up in Connecticut, and I worked for 2 years as a middle school art teacher. I felt at some point there that I needed to become a better artist. And so I stop me if I stray.
No,
So
stray away.
I wanted to go somewhere that was a little cutting edge. So I applied to California Institute of the Arts, and I was accepted, and I became a silkscreen fine arts, you know, uh, candidate. So well, I can't tell you this because I want to tell you this story later.
Okay.
So I went there. I went from being a fine artist to a graphic designer. And I ended up working in a very hardworking ad agency in Hollywood after that. And we mostly worked in the music industry. We had great clients. We had CBS Epic Records was one of our big clients. So we worked on a lot of high profile album covers. Kenny Loggins, Kansas, the group Kansas. Tom Drennan was my boss, and he did all of those intricate in all those Kansas album covers. He did those illustrations so intricate. Michael Jackson was one of our clients. I designed some stuff for him personally, which was kind of a highlight of my life, if not career. Then I came back east, and had a great job working for Scolo Sweet Ellen Rayner. We were kind of a boutique, but pretty high profile, um, very unusual design work. That's what I was looking for. I wanted to do something that was kind of pushing the edges a little bit of where the design world was in those days. And we had some wonderful clients there, award-winning, beautiful things. And after that, after Duncan, my first son, was born, I worked a little bit more, and then I stopped for a while. And I was doing a little freelance work during those days. And then our second son was born. And I went back to doing design work, but mostly web design with my husband emeritus, I call him. And we did that for a couple of years. Then we split up, and I went back to teaching at that point. Since then, I started teaching again. I revved up the teaching career in 1999, and I worked for Concord Public Schools in the middle school until 3 years ago when I retired. I've kept up a bit of a freelance. It's not a business, but I've been doing freelance graphic design, as the general rule, pretty much on the regular. And I'm now part-time designer for Access Sport America, which is an organization that teaches people with disabilities to do high challenge sports. And this was an organization that was founded by the younger brother, Ross.
What brought you back from California to the East Coast?
My husband to be, Tim, got into MIT to the design lab, the computer design lab there. And so I was delighted because I knew LA wasn't going to be my forever place. I just wasn't feeling it in my bones. So that was great. And both of my brothers were living here in Massachusetts. So it ended up being home.
So out of all those highlights you shared, is there one or was there a favorite job that you had?
You really are gunning for this, Stan, aren't you? I did a bunch of work on the Thriller album. I just want to leave it at that.
Okay.
And also, I did some work for Michael Jackson personally, which was really quite wonderful. I really have no idea what happened in his life, but when I was working with him, he was nothing but intelligent, wise, creative, and lovely to work with.
So you say you've been retired for a couple of years now. What's that been like for you?
Took me about a year to kind of figure out what it looks like not to have that kind of work scaffolding, because I've always had it, for one way or another. And now I'm kind of feeling, after 3 years, I feel like I'm finally getting my rhythm and learning to be peaceful. There's a lot that can go on in one head at any given time. And I seem to entertain that model very well. Now I'm like, one of the questions I think that you might have asked me is like, what are some of the things that you might rely on that you've learned? And one of the things that I'm really, really, really glad for is that while I was at Oberlin, I learned how to meditate. And that is a game changer for me. I've been doing it since I was, a college kid. And there have been ups and downs in my career as a meditator, but mostly it's proven invaluable to me as an older citizen, honestly. It really helps to create some peace. And it's a great tool.
Do you do it regularly, or do you do it based on something triggering? Or what causes you to meditate?
It's a habit. I do it when I wake up in the morning. And then we have a wedding coming up in my family in about 3 weeks. And so I'm finding myself adding an afternoon session as well.
So what do you like to do now as a hobby or an interest?
I love singing. Occasionally, I'm a soloist here and there. I sing in a couple of gospel choirs. I've been known to sing in 3 at once. I sing in a choir that sings with the Boston pop, with the Pops and the Boston Symphony Orchestra. I also sing in a couple of other choirs, gospel choirs. It's just my passion. I love it. Oh, one place I also lived was Princeton, New Jersey, and that was a long time ago, and that's where I first learned about gospel singing. And I wanted to come back to it. And once I became a empty nester, um, I found a couple of opportunities and I seized them, and I haven't ever fallen out of love with it. So I sing. I love doing the crossword puzzle. I'm an avid cyclist. I'm kind of coming off of a knee replacement, and so I'm hoping to increase my portfolio of activities as a result of that.
What took you to Princeton?
Another boyfriend situation who was at the seminary.
All right. Now I'm going to move on to the Fave 5 topics, which are books, food, music, sports, and humor, starting out with, what do you like to read?
I am now in a local history jag. If before the local history, it would have been, I love Ann Patchett, and I'll talk about her in a minute, but I'm kind of I don't have any one particular type of genre of reading that I like to do, but I am loving this book called Black Walden by Elise Virginia Lemire, which is all about all of the enslaved and formerly enslaved Black folks who lived near Walden Pond in those woods back there. Somebody put it better than I could ever have, which is, we think of Walden as being very green, but it used to be very Black. And it's about the neighbors who lived there, how they used to, like all the different things that they used to do. It was a very kind of, not, I wouldn't call it bustling, but it was very alive with culture. They told fortunes, they spun linen. Anyway, that's a long answer to a short question. And then I'm also reading The Transcendentalists in Their World, which is a pretty granular examination of the context of the Transcendentalists and then what kind of spun them into the personalities that they became.
How'd you get interested in the local history?
Because I live in Concord, and it's all over the place, and it's been smacking me in the face ever since I moved here many years ago, and I felt like, well, it's time for me to learn this stuff, and I'm enjoying it like crazy.
So it sounds like you got a favorite author. You want to tell us about
Ann
that?
Patchett, I love Ann Patchett.
So do I.
She's just so elegant, you know. Any book, Bel Canto is my favorite novel of all time. It's a million years old, and I've read it maybe 8 times, 7 times. Dutch House, so good. State of Wonder, oh. I mean, she's effortless, and the way she spins these stories about family culture, and she takes these relatable characters and she makes accessible such levels of complexity and beauty, and connection. The way people navigate these difficult times in their life, she's so good at it. I also love that she has that great bookstore, Parnassus Bookshop, bookstore in Nashville. I love that place.
Yes, she's definitely a favorite of mine. I've read everything that she's written, and her most recent novel, Tom Lake, which takes place in Michigan, is a favorite of mine. Some people said they didn't think it was that great, but I loved it.
Oh, that's so good, especially if you like, what's the play again? Our Town.
Our Town. So as Michigan people, we can kind of recognize where it was she was going to when she was doing her research and writing about it.
I remember thinking about you as I was starting to read that book.
I first got to encounter Ann Patchett when my son was a freshman at Kalamazoo College. She came and spoke at the initial induction ceremony for the freshman class. So that was a real treat. And then she came back at graduation and was commencement speaker for that class. So
Oh,
Got to
how
see her talk
lucky.
twice, so that was great.
And she's so good. Did you read that piece that she wrote? Was it for the New Yorker about how during the pandemic, um, Tom Hanks' assistant lived with them. She was struggling with cancer and she stayed with them and she received treatments. Did she receive treatments at Vanderbilt? I kind of forget. It's just riveting and heartrending and it's great. Look, check it
I
out.
will. I will. Some of the other stories in her nonfiction are really quite moving of what she did for friends and her husband flying around to get
Yes,
people. It's just like, all right, that's something to aspire to.
absolutely. Oh, and I wanted to mention one other thing.
Yes.
There's a movie that I really love. I love 20 Feet from Stardom. You know that movie?
Yes, I do.
First of all, I love Lisa Fisher. She's amazing. But I can watch that movie any day, every day, probably. I mean, Mary Clayton, her story about like being in curlers and going down to record, hey, rape, murder. Oh my God. She's a woman of God. She's from the church. She's rape, murder. Yeah. So good. I love that story.
Yeah, there's a number of films that have been made about sort of the unsung heroes of music. That's certainly one of them. But the standing on the shoulders of Motown, or standing in the shadows of Motown, the Wrecking Crew. There's recently been another one. So this has
Oh, I
become
love the
kind of
Wrecking Crew.
a
Yeah,
theme.
good one.
All right, moving on to food. What do you like to eat?
This is an ironic answer. I have a gluten allergy. So everything's a little narrowed, but I love a good sandwich when I can get one. But I think one of my favorites is really a good veggie burger.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great recipe um, in the New York Times. It's called the Ultimate Veggie Burger, I think. It's got a billion, it takes almost a whole day to make, but you can freeze it. Anyway, it's a really, really good burger. And you feel a little bit, kind of feel good about yourself. So it's good. It's a pretty healthy option. But the truth of the matter is a good Reuben, that's a thing of the past, but I can still feel the love for a good Reuben.
Hard to beat a good Reuben. If we were going to share a meal together, you're going to take me out to eat somewhere. Where would we go?
You know, we go to the Tenafly Diner.
Good answer. What about if I was in Concord? Where would we go up there?
Um, you know, there are a couple of really lovely restaurants here, but I would take you probably to Bandoleros, which is our local Mexican restaurant. A couple of people came up from Mexico and they entrepreneured their way into a couple of Mexican and a couple of great Italian restaurants. I would probably take you there because I love the vibe, and their spicy margarita is.
What
I'm
about
not a big
sea?
fan. I don't eat fancy too
Okay.
much.
What about seafood? Do you have a place you like for that?
Um, Not legal anymore. Not legal seafood anymore. Mm, I think actually this is off the beaten track, but I like JT Farnham's up on the North Shore in Essex. They make the best fried clams ever, and they're gluten free.
Well, that sounds like a place we should check out next time I'm in
We
the
should
area.
next time, baby. We'll go.
All right, moving on to music, which is certainly near and dear to your heart. Maybe you'll give us several answers about a favorite song, musician, concert, or album.
This is too hard a question, Stan. I'm going to lose points. um, of course, it goes without saying that almost any of the songs recorded by my son Duncan in Passion Fruit Boys, his band, or Music Band, his other band, formerly. Um, but mainstreamish artists, I love Lyle Lovett, hands down. I love Alicia Keys, Lisa Fisher, of course, Todd Rundgren, Steely Dan, Jill Scott, Joni Mitchell. The 1975, I love those guys, that British pop group.
Mm-hmm.
Hezekiah Walker, stellar. XTC, remember XTC?
Yes.
Uh,
I think
and
it's
John
just pronounced
Gorka,
ecstasy.
ecstasy.
Right.
Um, and John Gorka, of course. And I mean, we have to say John Gorka and we have to say Bruce Springsteen just because of the New Jersey thing. I don't love Bon Jovi.
How about a favorite song?
One of These Things First, by Nick Drake. I think that's my favorite song. You know, the Colbert Questionnaire?
Yeah.
So he has that question that's similar, like if you were stuck on a desert island and you had only one song that you could list access.
Mm-hmm.
One of These Things First is my favorite song, but I think it would have to be a symphony because it would be something like
Right.
Beethoven
more
or
duration there.
yeah, it would have to have more duration.
What
Anyway.
about a favorite album?
I have a real soft spot for Can't Buy a Thrill by Steely Dan.
I was just reading a piece about that.
About that album?
I have that album. It was about that album. It was saying that it was the favorite of the person writing. And then it was going into, it was actually talking about Pretzel Logic. But I got, I had heard the two hits on Can't Buy a Thrill on the radio, and then I hadn't paid much attention to Steely Dan after that. And then a friend of mine said, "Oh, you got to get Pretzel Logic." And then when I got that, I ended up buying all the whole catalog, and it's one of my favorite bands.
I think I've got them all on vinyl still. But
one time I was in LA visiting my brother, and he took me to a recording session and he introduced me to Denny Diaz, who was the guitarist on most of those early Steely Dan records. And said, "Oh, he's played with Steely Dan." And I thought, "Oh, it's pretty impressive."
Well, they were pretty exacting in the studio, if not tyrants. But I felt kind of sad when they showed up as like the hallmark of yacht rock.
Well, they argue that. In fact, I think I read something where the person doing the yacht rock show tried to, or I think they played it at the end of the documentary. He's talking to Donald Fagen, and he wants to be on. You want to be on the yacht rock demo, and he basically cusses him out and hangs up.
Oh, okay.
So he didn't want to be considered yacht rock.
I'm glad for that. I'm glad they didn't go softly into that good night. What is it?
That's close enough.
Good enough.
My brother is actually on that documentary. They show a shot of his album with Charisma. So he's kind of proud that he's on the yacht rock documentary.
Well, any port in a storm, I suppose. I don't know. That's wrong, but.
All right. How about a favorite concert?
A favorite concert. So here's one. This is going to just take you back. I think I told you this. I've told you this. My first ever concert was at Forest Hill Stadium. It was the Monkees. And Jimi Hendrix was the opener. Here's the thing. I hardly remember Jimi Hendrix. If I'm remembering it correctly, I don't even know. I've loved every single, this is just going to sound so typical, but it's true. Every Bruce Springsteen concert I've ever been to knocked me off my feet. Every single one. It was great. They've all been great. I'm going to just stick with that. I just saw Todd Rundgren a few weeks ago here in Lexington at a kind of a smaller venue. I've seen him tons of times. He and Lyle, I think, and Bruce, I've seen all of them. And crazy enough, Joni Mitchell too, a lot of times. But Todd Rundgren still has something magical about him when he's live. He's he's he just makes me curious still.
What was the first record you bought?
Meet the Beatles. I think there were a couple of 45s that I bought before then.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you for giving me the most wonderful summer of my life, or something like that. Some schmaltzy. I don't even remember it. But Meet the Beatles was the first really real album that I ever bought.
And did you wear that out?
I still have it. It's pretty crunchy sounding, but I still have it.
What was the last concert you went to?
Todd Rundgren, that one.
Okay. All right, now on to sports. Do you enjoy watching sports at all?
My favorite topic, Stan, as you know. So not a lot of sports viewing for me. I'll watch a little tennis, an occasional tennis, because my brother Wayne and Helga, his wife, they are deeply involved in tennis. So I'll watch tennis every once in a while. I'll watch a football game every once in a while. And I actually do have enjoyed baseball a bit in my life. But I love cycling. I love my bike. I love cycling. And I work out every day. And now that I have a replaced knee, I'm hoping to be able to get back into tennis a little bit, and also maybe volleyball if it's possible, and maybe swing dancing, which I used to do quite a lot of. Yeah. Does gardening count?
Gardening counts as an interest.
The way I do it is kind of more like a sport.
Sport? I suppose if you successfully raise plants, you're successful at that sport. Do you have a favorite athlete or team or memory of sports?
I have a couple memories. So when I lived in Connecticut, this was in the 70s, we had a devoted crew that used to go down to Yankee Stadium on the regular. It was a long haul down and back. But, that was during the days of Thurman Munson and Figueroa and Mickey Rivers and Lou Piniella, Willie Randolph. We lived and died by the Yankees. Then fast forward to the 80s, and Tim and I, the husband Maris and I, used to go to Dodgers Stadium pretty regularly when that was back in the days of, Fernando and who else? Steve Yeager and Dusty Baker, who else? Ron Say. And we were, and that was also the year that they lost the Bucky Dent incident when they made it to the World Series. And anyway, I also enjoy, I just wanted to say, I think I forgot to tell you that I really like backyard sports, like backyard games like bocce and what is it? Croquet.
Mm-hmm. All right. Final topic is humor. What's a favorite comedian or comedy film or TV show or funny book that you would recommend?
I love Kathleen Madigan, a Midwestern comic. I think she's really, really, really brilliant. And I love Dave Chappelle also. However, Steve Martin is still the hands down favorite. I mean, I love that he's a really wonderful musician. I love that he's a funny and also poignant author. And I'm happy that he's still around, like his Murders in the Building, etc.
That's coming back, I think, next week.
Oh, good. That'll be great. Yeah, so it's still Steve Martin. He's still the gold standard for me.
He's come up a number of times on these, so he's the leader in the clubhouse right now.
Well, it doesn't surprise me because he changed the game for us when we were of a certain age, right?
All right, last question. Who is the best at making you laugh, and who are you able to crack up?
Okay. we were kids. It was my brothers. We were cracking each other up all the time. Those long trips with the vinyl where you're
Yeah.
stuck to the vinyl seats. All we could do was be silly. We were silly meisters. And that was the classic mom slap. Stop it, stop it. To the point where, honestly, we were in the desert and we were getting so punchy and hilarious to ourselves that my dad said, if you don't stop it, I'm pulling. I mean, if this is a million degree heat in the desert, he says, if you don't stop, you're all getting out of the car and you're going to walk. Dang, if he didn't make good on that promise. We ended up pushing the boundaries and having to get out of the car. There are photographs to document this, and the three of us in a line walking on the side of the road in front of the station wagon in the desert.
How long
But
did that go for?
we did crack each other up. My brother Ross still makes me laugh. We have, when you have a shared history, there are so many shorthand jokes.
Mhm.
My sons, they both have goofy streaks. Both Duncan and Connor have very goofy streaks, and I crack up. I think my friend Andrew, he's a he's a he's a he's a pretty easy. He's Canadian. He's an easy mark. I mean, he's a massage therapist also, and so we spend a lot of times with me, like him working on my neck. I mean, it's counterproductive, really. We're laughing. He's chuckling. We spent a lot of time chuckling.
Well, it's time for a story. Which one have you selected?
Um, okay, a pivotal point in my life. So, as you know, during my second year of teaching in Connecticut, I decided, okay, it's time for me to be a serious artist, to double down on the artist in me. So specifically, I fancied myself to be a serious serigrapher, silkscreen artist. So I looked for these cutting edge schools and I found California Institute of the Arts and they accepted me. So I headed out from Connecticut to the West Coast. And after one semester as the serious artist, I was contacted by a man named Lou Danziger. He was the director of the graphic design department. I was taking art classes, I was taking fine art classes, and I was also taking one graphic design class. So he was the head of the graphic design. He was the director of the graphic design department. He basically told me that he and the other members of the graphic design department had put their heads together and they had reviewed my portfolio of fine artwork thus far, and they didn't think I had much of a future. So I saw myself, I went, the blood drained and I went numb and I thought, oh my God, they're going to ask me to hit the road. But that wasn't the case. Instead, they asked me to jump ship from fine art and join them in the graphic design department. And to lure me, they uh, they they were tempting me with an Amundsen fellowship, which was basically full freight, with a job in the admissions department, with being a graduate assistant to one of these. All these teachers were really kind of famous in the graphic design world, and rightfully so. And a position as a student mentor. So anyway, there was deliberation from me, and I felt like, oh, I'm selling out to the man. I'm going to go into commercial design, commercial illustration, commercial, art. But you know what? I accepted because I had some more conversations with them. I accepted, and I never looked back. Lou Danziger ended up being my mentor. He was like, this was such a gift. He was one of the great gurus of American graphic design, and he really changed my life. He taught all the great modernist values. He taught clarity and economy of means and social responsibility and like how to be, how being appropriate uh, to the purpose, making sure that your visuals were appropriate to the purpose. Anyway, after graduating from Cal Arts, I had a wonderful career as a graphic designer. And it's all because of that little turn of event or big turn of events, both in Hollywood and here in Boston. So that was all before going back to teaching in 1999. And being a graphic designer really helped me be a more succinct type of a teacher when I went back to teaching. So it was really, really fortunate. It was really, really a great, unexpected change.
When you were making that decision, how did you make it? What were the different factors you consider, and how did you finally choose to switch?
I felt like I could probably earn a living. I think that's what it boiled down to. I felt like, well, also, I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't know like I didn't know how to make a life as a fine artist at that point. And just because I loved it and it was meaningful to me, I felt like that was going to get me through. But Lou convinced me that you can take all of those same skills and you can apply them into all different kinds of graphic design. You can push the edge in graphic design, as we all know. There's an awful lot of smarts that go in. It's kind of a really nice melting pot of talents that you can bring in to the table. When you're a graphic designer, you're a problem solver. And so I could teach that to my students, which was kind of great. Also, that's.
What do you think they saw in you that caused them to try to recruit you to switch over to graphic design?
I have an idea. I really don't know. I think it was that, I think that I had a couple of really good solutions to some of the problems that they would offer to the students. And I had a couple of standouts. And I guess my silkscreen work wasn't standing out as well in a good way.
Well, thanks for that story. I'm going to share now the story of my own, which dates back to the 2011 Tenafly High School 40th reunion. And I had gone to one previous Tenafly. I had the distinction of having two different high schools that I've attended reunions at. So my high school in St. Louis, I've gone to the reunions over the years. And then I went to the 20th Tenafly reunion. And at that particular one, I didn't really feel as though I really belonged there. It's almost like, did anybody remember me? I hadn't graduated from Tenafly. I had transferred after the junior year. But everybody that I kind of went up to was kind of felt a little awkward. And I thought, well, I'm glad that I came to this, but I'm not going to any more of these Tenafly reunions. They don't care about me a bit. And but then subsequently, we started to have connections on Facebook with people, and long dormant connections with classmates began to sort of rise up again. And I think we started connecting there, and we'd see each other and talk to each other online. So when the 2011 40th reunion came along, I thought, all right, I'll give it another shot. I'll go to that one. I actually had reason to go back there anyway. My daughter was living in New York at the time, so it felt like a good excuse to go back and see her as well as go to the reunion. So, but the big thing that happened was that you and I made a plan to meet up the day of the dinner. So I think if we had just had the dinner, it wouldn't have been that good of an event. But because we made this plan to spend time before the dinner, that made all the difference. And then in addition, our friend Doug Keel, who was not on Facebook at the time, you said you were going to invite him to show up as well, right? So that was done outside of Facebook. So on that morning where we met up at the Clinton Inn in Tenafly, where we were staying, you and Doug appeared, and then we went off and we walked around and we visited various places, and we had lunch at the Tenafly Diner. We met up with other people. But just that day together and connecting and realizing that we were good friends really strengthened that. And that's led to the ongoing connections and our regular Zoom calls. And I think that was really significant. So what I learned from that is a single like reunion event dinner is never going to be that meaningful, right? You can only see people and have sort of insufficient communication, trivial exchanges, but spending more quality time made the difference. And I'm very grateful that we did that.
You and me both, Stan. I remember when we were at the diner, especially because our group telescoped up to a bunch. I mean,
Yes,
it
it did.
started out as three of us and Kathy. There were a whole bunch of other people there, like a bunch.
Yes.
And it's one of the only things that I really remember about that reunion. And I felt like our time together walking around and culminating in that lunch was kind of better than
Yeah,
the official formal stuff.
exactly right. So if ever there are any more reunions to be had, our 50th reunion for Tenafly, I didn't attend. They did have it, but we kind of participated remotely, but it really wasn't all that meaningful. My other high school, they didn't have a 50th reunion because it was during the pandemic. So that sort of curtailed it. So maybe we'll have a 55th reunion or
Maybe.
60th. But if there ever is another
Even
one,
if
we'll have to
only
make
three or
sure to
four of
do the
us.
pre-meeting.
Yeah, the pre-meeting is the thing. That's good.
Well, you have any last thoughts to share with us before we wrap up our interview?
No, I just want to thank you for keeping us all in touch after all these years and for doing these podcasts. It's bold and courageous. I feel honored to be included. Thank you.
Well, thank you for agreeing to be on. I think some people are reluctant to be interviewed. I think you might have had a moment of reluctance, but I think that
Of course I did.
I've tried to explain to people that there's simply nothing to fear. We're going to have a pleasant chat together, and you do know all the answers to the questions. You won't be stumped by any of them. But nonetheless, I'll see how many people agree to these in the future. But now we've done 8 of them. I've got some more scheduled, and we'll keep going as long as people agree to talk to me. So thanks a lot, Cheryl. It's been great.
Yeah, what a lovely time. Thank you so much. Cheers.